Peter, over to you now to talk about, well, I guess a discussion about these licensing changes, which appear to be a moving target. What have we got?
Yeah. So there have been some updates to the date on this again. So Google announced updates to Google Workspace for Education Fundamentals licenses last year. We've got a bit more clarity now, so we thought it'd be good to just discuss these to make sure everyone's aware of these changes. We've got quite a few questions about these as well, so we'll just put all of this information together and we'll share a slide deck afterwards. And we thought we would talk through it now. Unfortunately, I don't have a live demo for this one today. I was hoping Google will get it sorted for me, but yeah, we don't quite have that set up yet. But as soon as I do, then I'll be able to show you live anyway. But let's get into this. So Google announced last year that they are changing the licensing model for fundamentals licenses. And essentially, the reason Google were doing that is to firstly give a bit more flexibility. There's going to be some new licensing types, but also stopping some potential misuse of Google Workspace as well. In terms of the actual changes though, so what's happening is, since Google Workspace for Education was launched, you've not had to worry about assigning fundamentals licenses. Every user you create on your domain would automatically get a license assigned. That's never something you'd have to manage. What's happening with this update? Google are more aligning it with how businesses or enterprises would manage licenses. So if you had a business or enterprise domain, every user you create, you need to ensure gets a license assigned, and that enables that user then to access services like Gmail, Drive, and so on. So this update, Google is going to start transitioning schools on March 2025. So that has been pushed back slightly, and that's initially only going to be schools who are only using the fundamentals licenses. So if you are using Education Plus in addition to fundamentals, then this change isn't going to affect you until later this year in May. So you've got a bit more time available there. Since Google Workspace for Education was launched, you'd get enough fundamentals licenses to cover every single user you create, and that's not changing. So what Google are going to do is, once we get to March, we're going to look at how many users you've got both active and suspended on your Google domains, and give you enough education fundamentals licenses plus a healthy buffer on top of that to make sure you've got enough going forward. But there's also some strategies we can look at to help you maximize those licenses as well, with some of the new license types, which we'll look at in a moment. And this one, so for new Google Workspace for Education customers, there is a limit, which is probably not going to affect anyone in this call, as most of you are long-time Google users. But if you're setting up a new domain, there is a maximum of 2,500 licenses, but that can be increased by going to your Google for Education partner, which is hopefully us, or directly through to Google support. They'll still be free, but there'll be some additional checks about what ways extra licenses are needed. So let's get into the interesting bit now, the new license types, which I think are actually going to be really useful going forward. So there's two new types. There is an archive user license and a Gmail only user license. So let's take the Gmail only user license first. So this, exactly what this name says on a tin, it's just for Gmail only. So what that means is, if you assign the Gmail only license rather than a fundamentals license to a user, that user can only access Gmail. They can't access Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slides, Calendar, and so on. Sorry, not Calendar, I should mention. Calendar is included in this license, but Drive, Docs, and Me. Now, where this license is going to come in useful is, one of the examples mentioned here is alumni, but where I think it's going to be more useful is for these service accounts, which many schools create. It could be for a particular team, like the finance, HR, or the IT team, where it just needs to be an email account, and we don't want that account to be owning data in Google Drive. And accounts of that type, you typically might set up delegation so that other users can just access it via the delegate mail option in Gmail. So I think that license type is going to be really useful for those types of users. Also being launched alongside that is the archive license. So this is suited to users. Once you've suspended them, you can archive that user. That means that all services are disabled, that user account can't be accessed, but any data that user account has is still retained and protected and will follow all of your Google Vault rules you've already configured there. So as is mentioned here, useful for preserving data for former employees or students. Alongside the fundamentals changes, there's some changes coming to Education Plus. These are pretty minor, and I don't think they're going to affect anyone on this call. But now there is a minimum purchase of at least 50 licenses for Education Plus or Standard. This is for full domain licensing. That's not changed. That's always been the case. So what do you need to do? So as I mentioned at the beginning of this section, previously with Google Workspace for Education Fundamentals licenses, these have always been automatically assigned. There's no way to unassign it. You've not had to manage that at all. So once your domain gets transitioned to this new model, Google will ensure that all of your existing users, so all active and suspended users, will automatically get a fundamentals license, and that will be already assigned. However, any new users you create after that date, you'll need to make sure that they get a license. And there's a few different ways of managing this, which I'll take you through in a moment. Once Google does transition domains, what they will do, and we can look at this in the admin console. So under billing and subscriptions, unfortunately, I can't show it right now because our Google Workspace domain here for fundamentals, we're still on the existing model. We don't have access to the new model. But once it does go live, what's going to change is Google will set up automatic licensing for you in the admin console for your top level OU. So if we look at Education Plus in this domain, for instance, I've set this up in the same way. So I've gone to manage licensing settings, and it's assigned to on for my top level OU, and Google will set that up for you automatically. So you don't need to do that, and that means any new users you create then will automatically get a license. However, what you'll probably want to go in and do is, as I've done on this domain, I've created a couple of extra OUs, one for my archive users, where I've turned automatic licensing off, and also for my Gmail only users. And again, I've turned automatic licensing off. So any users I place in these two OUs won't then get a fundamentals license. Then once I get the new license types, for instance, on the Gmail only license, I could then assign that to that OU, ensuring that any users who get placed into there will get that license automatically. The one thing to bear in mind of with the automatic licensing in Google Workspace is, this comes up all the time, if a user has been assigned a license with automatic licensing, even if you move them out of that OU, they will still retain that license. So it's just assigning licenses automatically. It's not removing those licenses automatically. So if you want that to happen, there's a few different ways of doing that. You could use GAM to do that either manually or automate that with a GAM command, and make sure that any users, in particular OUs, you want to have a license removed, you can do that with GAM, or you could use GAM to assign a new license as well. Also, just to highlight, another tool which we've developed with Google is a Google Sheets-based tool that uses AppScript. And once the changes have gone live, we will update this to support the new fundamentals license, as well as the new Gmail and archive license types as well. And this tool will be able to take care of assigning those licenses for you, but also ensuring that inactive users automatically get their licenses removed to make sure that your license is accurate and just your active users are getting a license there. And there are other tools to enable this as well. So if we're using ClassLink, for instance, ClassLink can also manage licensing for you as well. Also, if you're using Google Cloud Directory Sync, that can also be configured to manage licensing on your domain as well. So there's a bunch of different ways of managing licenses. So there will be a way in the admin console which will be set up for you automatically by Google. But as I say, you'll just have to make sure that your licenses do get removed as well. So there's a bit of management needed there. But at least you won't need to worry about assigning licenses to new users. So just a reminder of a timeline here. It's going to start happening in March 2025. And as I say, that's just for domains which are only using the fundamentals license initially. Education Plus users are going to be updated in, or at least from May 2025. But if these dates change again, we will, of course, be sure to let you know about those. And I've got an article here which goes through all of these changes in much greater detail, which you can read as well. So let me just share this slide deck in the chat now. So feel free to grab a copy of this. And here is the article, which goes through everything we've just discussed. There's some extra Q&A questions down here. So I think we've covered most of these. I've had this one a few times. What happens to users' data in driving photos if you unassign a fundamentals license? So just to clarify on that one, nothing happens. That data doesn't disappear just because they haven't got a license. So your existing vault retention rules will still apply to that data, and that data will still be on your Google Workspace domain. But I just wanted to tackle that question that has popped up a lot